If the U.S. government was a household, and that household spent the same proportion on firearms as the U.S. spends on military, including debt for foreign wars, expenses for veterans, etc., it would probably cause a red flag trigger and somebody would come over our house and intervene. But despite having the biggest military in the history of militaries on this planet, we didn't deter the invasion of Ukraine. So my question is about military spending. Can you identify one or two programs that you think we should cut back on? Or do you think that, as the administration has proposed, we need to move in the direction of increasing our military by 50%?
There are trillions of dollars in waste with government contracts, with military contractors that we just give to buddies of people in the government that we can cut back on. The amount that Elon Musk alleged that he wanted to cut with Doge, we could have done that in military waste identified by multiple progressive members of Congress. Exactly what you said about a household, that's totally right. There's this post I'm thinking of where it says, you know, I'm spending $50 on food, $50 on housing, and $5,000 on candles. Someone help me budget this. That's what our military is like right now. We could actually be investing that in helping veterans. Instead, we have cut healthcare coverage for veterans. We've fired doctors. We've gotten rid of helping veterans exposed to tar pits. We have cut the service members line, and we've fired trans members from our military. It's absurd. I will not vote for another cent of increase to our military budget as long as American people are suffering.
Well, let me first say, in complete transparency, that my wife and I have 4 children, and 3 serve in the United States Navy, and we're deeply proud of them. And one of the reasons that I'm in this race is because I want their service to be honorable. I can think of 3 ways that we could cut the defense budget right now. 1, we can stop flying generals in from all around the world, pulling them from their busy schedules to pay homage to a president and a very, very goofy defense secretary. 2nd, we can stop deploying the U.S. National Guard in our cities to create fear, division, and not contribute to public safety. And 3rd, we can stop arming ICE. This has been the single greatest gift in modern history to the arms industry. Everybody in the US that's wanted a gun has had a gun, and now we have given about a $45 million purchasing power to ICE to arm these folks that are untrained, unaccountable, and creating public safety risk on our streets.
Thank you. I'm going to pick up where Phil left off, because if we reduce the military spending, especially for ICE right now, they have hired 12,000 people since January. And let's talk a little bit about the training of these ICE quote-unquote officers that I refer to as Donald Trump's private army. They used to get 5 months of training. Now they get 47 days, and they're given a weapon and they're put on our streets. I have just filed legislation in Springfield that says nobody who's been hired under ICE during this reign of terror can be a police officer in Illinois. Our police officers are trained. They work on de-escalation. They work on mental health training. And these people with guns roaming our street, impacting our neighbors, are causing trauma and hurting what our officers are trying to accomplish, and that's gaining trust within our communities.
Look, I know when I've heard good answers ahead of me, and I haven't heard anything here that I would disagree with. I will point out a couple of things, though. One is that, and I'm not advocating that we don't slash our enormous, obscene military budget, but we do need to remember that the very large majority of that is on personnel. And I think sometimes we think it's just on bombs, but it is not. I think it's 80% on personnel. The area that I think is really missing from this discussion is on diplomacy. mean, there are currently 80 senior positions in the State Department that haven't been filled. So we're saving money, I guess, on their salaries. But I sure would like to see a lot more diplomacy in foreign policy than just military attention.
You know, I really appreciate this question. You know, there's this phrase, non-defense discretionary spending, that gets thrown around when they're talking about the federal budget. And that phrase is code for the Pentagon is sacred, let's cut other stuff. And that is how our government has operated for generations. It's wrong. It's wrong. And part of that means we just have this giant, ever-growing, bloated military budget. And part of that means it's basically unaudited. The amount of waste, the amount of fraud, the number of contractors getting rich, giving donations to politicians and getting big contracts and putting money in their pockets, it is absurd. It is time to treat the Pentagon like the rest of the government. Give it the scrutiny we give the rest of the government. Give it the budget constraints we give the rest of the government. And actually, only spend money when it's useful. A lot of what we're doing right now is not only not useful, it's counterproductive, it's violent, it's destructive.
I've written a piece of legislation called the Books Not Bombs Act. It takes 1% from our defense budget and reallocated to federal funding for public education leads to a 10% increase in funding for public education, which not only saves property taxpayers, renters, and homeowners thousands of dollars a year annually and means that your zip code doesn't determine the quality of life and access to public education your kids receive. It also shows the discrepancy and the ratio to your house analogy and example. People will sometimes say, well, then we won't be safe. And then I say, well, we actually reallocate 5%. 4% should be invested in cybersecurity because we are the only modern country not equipped for a cyber attack. And this is why banning congressional stock trading is so important, because of the amount of politicians and elected officials who are earning a very pretty dime off of the militarization and surveillance of all of us.